Hi everyone, and welcome to the Stitch Sessions. This week we are working on something a little different. We're going to be working on some crochet wall art. And as you can see here, I have created this really fun, pretty pink butterfly motif. And it is made up using very basic stitches like double crochets, and we've done some extended shell stitches. And as you can see, I kind of made it so it matched some of my wall art here. And I have to apologize for the shakiness of my camera work. I'm used to having it on a steady tripod. But I just wanted to show you kind of how I was using my motif to kind of work within a collection of other pieces of art. And in fact, what it's hanging off of is actually a stir stick. It's a fancy stir stick. I found it at one of those stores like Home Sense or Home Goods, for those of you in the States. And here it is worked in the lilac, which is the tutorial we're going to work on today. And I just loved how it turned out, and I thought this would make for a great piece of art. And now you can place this inside a frame or a canvas, and I talk about that in the tutorial as well. But I just thought keeping it super simple was just a great way to add a little something more to this piece. So I'm always interested in finding different ways to use the craft of crochet. So that's what we're going to work on today. And if you enjoy these tutorials, make sure that you do press that subscribe button, because we've got lots of different playlists on different types of projects that you can use crochet for. So I upload every Wednesday morning, and a lot of times I'll add in extra tutorials and things like crochet quick chats and some of the crochet conversations that I have some special guests come in and join in. But in the meantime, let's get all of our materials together and let's get started on stitching up our really pretty crochet butterfly. Okay, so let's dive in. Here are the things you're going to need to make your crochet butterfly. First of all, you're definitely going to need yarn. And for this particular butterfly, I'm going to be using some of this Bernat Handicrafter cotton. And I just chose cotton for this particular one for no particular reason other than I really just fell in love with the color, and it was a small ball because you're not really going to need much. These balls come in, so this one is in a 42.5 gram ball. Some of them come in 50s. That's why I got a bit confused there. You will not use this whole thing. So first of all, I like the fact that it was a small ball of yarn, and cotton is also great, and I love the color. And in case you're wondering, it is lavender. You're probably going to need, maybe half of this. But again, depending on how tight you crochet, if you use a bigger hook, it'll use up more. But I think you're going to be fine if you just pick up one of these. Okay, so that's what we're going to use. Usually I like to use my favorite hook size here. One of my favorites, which is my 5mm hook, also known as an H or a size 8. That's what I'm going to be using for my project. But again, if you would like your butterfly stitches to sit a little bit looser, then you might want to go up as high as a 6. Totally up to you. As always, make sure you have a handy pair of scissors and a darning needle for sewing in your ends. And the other thing you're going to need is something to hang your butterflies from. Now, this is completely up to you. You can actually mount your butterfly onto a canvas, maybe put it inside a shadow box frame, or you can hang it. Now, I've found something that is quite unorthodox, and you're probably wondering what exactly this is. As you can see, it's shaped as an arrow, and it's actually a stir stick. So I guess this is for when you're making martinis and you're stirring up the ice a little bit. Martinis, as if I know. I have no clue, but that's what the box here says. It came in a box of 4, and it's just called Arrow Stir Sticks. So that's the deal with that. Now, I bought this at a store called Home Sense. We have this here in Canada. In the States, you might have something like Home Goods, owned by the TJ Maxx chain. So maybe you might find this there. But I actually saw this and I knew I was going to do some kind of a craft project with it. So this is what I'm going to use to hang my butterfly from when we're done. So you might just want to have that on hand, and let's dive right in. So to begin, you're going to place a slip knot on your hook, and you can do this in whatever fashion works for you. That works for me. We're going to begin by chaining 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we are going to start from the center of the butterfly and work our way out. So we're starting with one of the wings, okay? Once you've chained 6, what you're going to do is you're going to find the second chain from the hook, and you're going to place a single crochet into that stitch, and then you're going to proceed to place one single crochet into every stitch until you get to the end. So you are now going to end up with 5 stitches in total. Okay, so that's my last one there. So you have something that looks like that, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Remember, our chain 1 was there to turn. And that is row 1. So we're going to move on to row 2. And for row 2, what you're going to do is you're going to chain 3. And then you're going to turn your work. And what we're going to do is right back into the base of that chain, which is right here, we're going to place 1 double crochet into that stitch. Okay, just like that. Now we're going to go into the next stitch, and we're going to place 2 double crochets. And so with the first one, remember that our chain 3 counts as a double crochet. Okay, so the chain 3 and the double crochet. So technically you've got 2 in there, and then in the next stitch we place 2 double crochets, and that is what you're going to do into the last 3 stitches. So you will have 10 stitches when you get to the end. And I just finished my 10th stitch. So now you can see your work is kind of starting to fan out, and that is perfect. That's exactly what we want. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 stitches. Perfecto. So we're going to move on to row 3, and we are going to chain 3 again, and then we're going to turn our work. This time what we're going to do is we're going to go into the very next stitch. So remember, this is the base of our chain 3, which counts as a double crochet, and we are going to place 2 double crochets into that stitch. So we left the chain 3 on its own, so that's going to count as 1 double crochet. And then in this next stitch here, we're placing 2 double crochets. Okay. Then in the next stitch, we're only going to place 1 double crochet. So that is the pattern for this row. In the next stitch, we're going to place 2. So you're basically going to place 2, 1, 2, 1 till you get to the end. Okay, so we had 1 double crochet, 2 into this one, 1 into the next one, 2 into the next. Then you'd have 1, 2, 1, 2, again, all the way to the end of your row, and then you'll end up with 15 stitches. Okay, I'm just coming up to the end of row 3, but I wanted to show you guys and remind you that those of you that are more experienced, that we have our chain 3 here. So make sure you find the top of your chain 3 to place your last 2 double crochets. So I've done my count. I only have 13, and I know I need to end up with 15. Okay, so I want to make sure that this doesn't get left behind, because sometimes it would be easy to think that you're done. Okay, so I'm going to find the top of that chain 3, which is right there. I'm going to place the first half double crochet. Then I'm going to go back in and place the second one. And this will be my 15th stitch for this round. So now you can really see that it's starting to look like a wing. Okay. So moving on to row 4, we will chain 3 again and turn our work. So for row 4, our pattern is now going to be to place 1 individual double crochet, 2 individuals, and then the increase. So it would be 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, all the way down. So the chain 3 will count as the first one. We'll go into the next stitch and we'll place the next double crochet. And now into the next stitch, we're going to place 2 double crochets, which is also known as an increase stitch. So we're going to go back into that same stitch and double crochet. Okay, so you have our chain 3 that counts as 1, the next one counts as 1, and then we have our increase. So we'll do that again. So we have 1 here on its own. We place the next one on its own next to it. And then in the next stitch, we'll place 2. So that will be our pattern for row 4. And again, as you come to the end, the top of your chain 3 is going to be getting 2 double crochets. So there's 1, and there is 2. There we go. Wow, now you can really see the shape of the wing taking form. Love it. And I really love how this color turned out. Okay, so that's the end of row 4. Now we're moving on to row 5. And so we will begin with a chain 3. And things will change up just a wee different. For row 5, we're going to go into the very next stitch, not the base of the chain 3, remember. We're going to place 1 double crochet into that stitch. And then what we're going to do is we are going to skip the next stitch, and into the next stitch we are going to place 3 double crochets. So we're basically going to place a shell into that stitch, a shell stitch which is made up of 3 double crochets. So there's our second one. Just like that. Next, we're going to skip the next stitch, and into the following stitch, we're only going to place 1 double crochet. So we are going to be alternating between a double crochet and a shell, a double crochet and a shell. And we're going to skip a stitch between each one. So we'll skip the next one, and into the following, we're going to place a shell. So 3 double crochets into the same stitch. Then we'll skip the next stitch and place only 1 double crochet. Okay, so you have something that looks like that. So you're going to keep doing that until you get to the end, and you should end up having 22 stitches. My apologies, guys. You end up with 21 stitches, okay? So I'm just coming up to the end here. So I've got 2 stitches left. I've done my single, so I'm going to do a shell into the very last stitch here. So that means I will place 3 double crochets in there. 2 and 3. Okay, there we go. Now our wing is really taking shape here. Okay, so that was the end of row 6. My apologies, guys. That was the end of row 5. So row 6 is going to change up even more. So we're going to chain 3. Okay, we're going to turn our work and we're going to place 2 double crochets into this first stitch. Now we've already chained 3, so we're only going to place 1 more, and we are going into the base of this stitch here. So that will count as 2. Then we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, and into the third, we're going to place 4 double crochets here. So we're now increasing the number of stitches we're placing inside here. And this is going to give our wing a really nice fanned out effect. So there's 3 and there's 4. Okay, just like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to skip 3, 1, 2, and 3, and into the 4th stitch we're going to place 6 double crochets into the same stitch. So we're really creating a large shell. Some people might even call this a fan or a shell. They kind of have the same shape. So we have 4, and we have our 5th, and then we're going to place our 6th. So we have a lot of stitches going inside this one spot here. So you see now it's giving our wings some ridges there. Okay, so for the next one, we're going to do the same thing. Skip 3 stitches, and into the 4th, you're going to place 6 double crochets. Okay, so you're going to repeat this a total of 3 times. Okay, so we had 2 at the beginning here. We have 4 double crochets, and now we have 6 double crochets. You're going to skip 3, 6 double crochets, skip 3, 6 double crochets. So you're going to do the 6 double crochets 3 times. Okay, go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you after you've done 3. Okay, so your work is looking something like this. Look at how pretty that's turning out. So we had our initial 2. We've got our first shell here had 4. Then we have 3 sets of 6. And if you actually pull your work up and pay attention, you're doing the fans all into the tops of the single or the individual double crochets from the previous rows. See that? So it kind of gives it that really cool little veined out effect if you really pay attention. Okay, so we've only got a couple of stitches left. So into this last stitch here, we're actually only going to place 3 double crochets. Okay, I know we did 4 back there, but we just want to make sure we don't overpopulate the number of stitches we have here. So we're placing 3 there. Remember, we have our chain 3 here. So into the top of the chain 3, we're going to place 2 more double crochets. Just like that. Okay. And then you'll have something that looks like that. Okay. So at the end here, you're going to have 29 stitches. Now remember, it's a piece of art. If you end up having 28 stitches or 30 or even 31 stitches, it's not the end of the world. As long as you like how it's turning out, that's all that matters. And I, for one, am just loving once the wings start taking shape. I just love how that comes out. By the way, you can also do this in multicolors if you wanted to do each row in different colors, or maybe do the shells in different colors to really accentuate it. Totally up to you. Okay, so we're just about done our very first wing, and now what we're going to do is we are going to single crochet down the side of our work until we get back to our original foundation row here. Okay, so we've pretty much finished shaping our first wing, and then there's going to be some finishing touches once we do the second wing. So what you want to do here is chain 1, And then what we're going to do is into the sides of these stitches, we're going to place a single crochet. So with a double crochet, generally, we can place 2 single crochets comfortably. So because I've chained one, I'm at the corner here, I just want to go right back into the top of that stitch and pick up another loop and just single crochet, whoops, right at the top there. And see, that just helps me kind of come around the bend here. Now I'm going to find somewhere along the middle of this stitch, and I always like to pick up at least a couple of loops when I go, just anywhere that you think will fit nicely. And I'm going to place the next single crochet so you can really see our wing is coming down the way here. And then I've got a spot here. So you basically are going to be eyeballing this all the way down the side. You don't want your stitches to be too bunched up, but you don't want them to be too far apart either. So this looks like a good spot here. Single crochet, and I'm pretty happy with that. And then I'm going to go down the center here. Whoops. There we go. Yeah, I'm liking that. So single crochet down the side until you get back to the very first foundation row there. Okay, so I'm just about there, and I've now come down to my very first stitch here, and I'm going to place a single crochet in there, and I ended up doing 10 stitches down the side there. So if I just put my work down there, you can really see that it looks like a pretty wing. I love that. So simple. The stitches are so simple. Just double crochets, and then we did some shells on the top. Okay, so we're back to our foundation row, and we need to make the other wing now. So we are going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now we want to find the very first chain, which is right there, and we are going to slip stitch to join. Oops, just like that. Okay, so now we've got the foundation row of the very next wing. So the formula we used for wing 1, we're going to do the exact same thing for wing 2. So just go back and repeat. Row 1 is going to be single crochets. Row 2 are going to be double crochets, but we're going to place 2 into each row, okay, etc., etc. I'll get you started. So I'm going to do chain 1. I'll turn my work and back into this first stitch here. I'm going to place a single crochet, and you want to make sure that you get 5 stitches, right? So 5 single crochets. So here's the second one, third, fourth, and here is the 5th one. Okay. Then we're going to go back and repeat row 2, which is to chain 3. Don't worry if this stitch here is a bit stretched. Later when we do some finishing rows, we'll fortify that as well. So you're going to do your chain 3. And now we want to remember row 2, we're placing 2 double crochets into each stitch. This chain 3 already counts as 1. So we're going to go back into the base of that stitch there and place the second one. Now into the next stitch, we place 2 again. Okay, so you're basically going to do the exact same thing we just did for the first wing. So you are going to repeat rows 1 through 6 of the wing of the first wing, and then we will do the finishing touches. So basically you're just continuously increasing like we did here, right? So I'm currently doing row 2. Row 2, we did 2 into each stitch. Row 3, we had an individual double crochet in between each increase. Row 4, we had 2 individual ones. And then row 5 is when we did our shells and posts. Row 6 is when we did our larger shells, okay? So what I would recommend, because it's a complete repeat, I would just recommend pausing the video and just going back to each row. And I have put a timestamp in the description box down below, so you can actually just go back again to that same spot to repeat rows 1 through 6. When you're done your row 6 of your second wing, I can't speak today, then I'll meet back up with you there, because there is a finishing round that we're going to do and a couple little embellishments we're going to add on to our really pretty butterfly. So excited. Okay, see you soon when you finished wing 2. Okay guys, here it is. See, it's not a project that takes long at all. So I've got my second wing here, and I'm really loving this color actually. And what I didn't realize is some of Bernat's Handicrafter cotton, it's actually scented. So this had this really pretty, I'm assuming it's a lavender scent. I kept crocheting thinking, wow, something smells so amazing. So it's this yarn. I also happen to know there's a pale yellow color. I think it's called Vanilla Bouquet. It also smells amazing. So Bernat, way to go on the scented yarn. Love it. Okay, so we've got our wings done. And now we just have a final detail, and that is to do a little trim row to create a nice textured ridge here. So you can see with this one, we just worked, basically it's just a single crochet row all the way around, and we're going into the back loops only to create this really pretty texture on the edge of the wing there. So that is exactly what we're gonna do next, okay? And so we will continue on right where we are. And we're going to go down the sides of stitches right now, because we're going to go down the side, around here, back up, all the way around, okay? So I've come to the end of my row here. So this was row 6 with the shells. And I'm going to chain 1. And this just helps me kind of come around the bend here. And I like to go back into the last stitch and then pick up the next loop. That's just a little technique that I've kind of developed, I guess you could say, but I mean, you could really just go right away into the side of the stitch. I just kind of like the way it comes around the bend there. And I'm just going to try and pick up a couple of loops here. So this part you've done already once before when we worked down the other side of your previous wing there. So there's nothing really unusual here. You're just going to go 1 single crochet and find the spots that work for you. Usually we would place 2 singles along the side of a double. That usually works out quite well. So go ahead and do that. I'll just meet you up down here, and I'll just kind of get you over across the edge there. Okay, so I'm just coming down the side here, and I'm going into an actual stitch there. Whoops. Okay, so just single crochets, and you can see it just gives us a really pretty finishing round there. And so now I can say we are working in a round, because we are literally just going to go around our entire piece here until we come back up to the top. So just here, because it's kind of where we joined our chain from the other side, I want to just try and pick up an extra loop here. So instead of just going here, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of skip over this gap here, and I'm going to go right into that chain stitch there and single crochet. And you can either go over your tail or weave that in later. And so it just kind of closes that gap there, and then I just move on into the next section. Now these are obviously chains I'm working into, so I just try my best to catch a couple of loops. just like that. And I am pretty happy with that. Okay, so we've worked down the center here, and now we're going to work our way back up. Okay, so continue working up the sides of your stitches, and you'll get a nice little finished edge just like that. And then I'm going to meet you up here just to talk about working into the back loops. Okay, so I'm just coming up to the end here, and I can see this is where I began a chain 3. So I'm just going to go into what looks like the first chain here, or wherever I can, whoops, fit my hook in. There we go. Okay, so that's the last single crochet coming up there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one more into that same stitch, and it's just going to help me come around the bend here, just like that. Okay, so now I'm going to actually have stitches to work into. And what I'm going to do, I've decided this is the front side of my work because I'm working this way. I'm going to work into the back loops only, and this will create that really pretty ridge effect. So my next stitch, it's actually supposed to be right here because that is a chain. So we're going to go into there, into the back loop only. So remember, it's the loop that's furthest away from you. So if I go into this stitch, normally you'd go in here. We're going to go here and pick up that back loop and single crochet. Okay, then we go into the next one, and that is what we're going to do. Into the back loop, and one more, and back loop. So now you can see it's pushing the front loop forward, and it's just going to give it this really pretty finishing touch. Now what you can do, if you really like to maintain the little kind of curved edge, anytime you get to the last stitch of the shell, what I would recommend is slip stitch into that back loop, okay? And this will just really solidify the scalloped edge. Okay, so it dips, oops. So it's going to dip down a little bit like that. I will slip stitch into the next one, and then into the following one I'm going to single crochet and back loops only. Okay, so there you go. So that slip stitch really helps to continue the kind of scalloped edge there. Okay, so I'll do that again with you guys. So I go along the shell here, back loops only. Okay, and as I come to the last stitch of this shell, I'm going to slip stitch. Okay, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the next one. Okay, so that's the beginning of the next shell. And now I'm just going to do a single crochet as usual, always into the back loops. And there you go. Oh, I'm so excited about this color, guys. So now it's going to maintain this really pretty scalloped effect. Okay, and there you've got your ridge. So that's what you're going to do all the way to the end. Once you get here, you'll notice that that's where you had originally started your descent down. So I would continue on going into the back loops only here. Now on this side, you are only going to have one set of single crochets, sorry, and that's just fine. I mean, it's kind of the way it rolls. So I would continue on back loops only, then come around, work your single crochets into the sides. Then once you come up here, you work your back loops only again until we get to the end. Now at this point you could fasten off, but if you would like to kind of expand the size of your wings and add yet another ridge row by working the back loops, that's totally up to you. Again, this is like your artistic license, however you'd like to do this, but I like just having the one little ridge, so I am going to stop there. But I'll meet you just as we're coming to the end. See, short and quick this project. Just love it. See you guys shortly. Okay, and I'm just coming up to the very last one here. I'm going to insert my hook here at the very top. I'm going to do one more single crochet. Oops. And then I'm going to add one more into that. And then I'm going to slip stitch right at the top where I began there in that first stitch. Okay. And then I'm going to snip my yarn. And we are done, 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 done. So I'm just going to pull that right through. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to weave this end. And I'm just going to show you how I'm going to do that right now. I don't like it when it kind of shows the knot or the end point there. And some of you have seen me do my little magic join, I like to call it. But I'm just going to keep this nice and simple. I'm going to go in through the top of this next stitch. And I'm just going to feed it through and just cinch it, just like that. Okay. And then I'll come through the back and I'll just weave it back and forth a few times, just so that it gets hidden there, just like that. And Bob is your uncle, okay? So I will just finish doing this up here, and I'll meet you back here in a second. And voila, your basic butterfly crochet wall art is done. Now, I am very happy with mine. In fact, I'm so in love with this color. I want to come up with other things to make out of it. So what you can do, now let me just make a little statement here. You can add, and originally for this hot pink one, I had made some little, I don't know, antennae, I guess you could call it. So it's just basically one long chain, and then I cinched it in the center. Sorry, it's one long chain that I made into a loop, and then I bent it in the center and I just knotted it. So that one and I left two long tails. So what I'm going to do here for this one is I'm going to sew this in and then leave the tails. Actually, I should have made them a little bit more equal so that they sit like that. This one I think I'm actually going to mount onto a canvas, or maybe I'm even going to place it in a shadow box frame, and that way I can really kind of leave that out like that. I just love that look. This one, on the other hand, I'm going to leave it a little bit more on the plain side. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with it right now. So I'm going to use it for my hanging, and I'm just going to grab my little stir stick makeshift hanging situation. And you can do one of two things. You can either attach a piece of string on each end and then tie it here, or have two pieces of string here, or keep it super simple and just insert in through the top edge of this wing here, and then come out through the other end, just like I had done before. And that way the wings will sit nice and flat, and then you just hang this up on your wall. Okay, now originally I had thought, oh, I'll just hang it up by here, but what happens, see that? It flops around a little bit. So it all depends on where you're placing it, but I'm really happy to keep this absolutely, categorically, stupidly easy and simple just by placing it right in there. And the great thing about doing this is you can swap this out anytime you want. Like maybe I'm going to get sick of the lavender, and then I'll put the hot pink in there, and I am good to go. So guys, I hope that you have enjoyed this sweet little project here. And I'm always trying to find different ways that we can use crochet. And not that there's anything wrong with doing garments and scarves and hats and all those beautiful things that I love to do. But I also love to dive into things like purses and bags and home decor. And I've recently kind of found a couple of really cool inspirations to do some crochet wall art. So as always, guys, if you have any questions, just leave them for me in the comment box down below. Or you can always get a hold of me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. And I'm also on Instagram at The Stitch Sessions. So if you've been enjoying these tutorials and you'd like to see more of this kind of content, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. This will help me know that you are enjoying working on these types of projects, and I will definitely look at making more of them. And if you haven't pressed that subscribe button, what are you waiting for? You got to get on the subscribe train. This way you'll know every time I upload a new video, a new tutorial. It might be a crochet quick chat or a crochet conversation. I upload every Wednesday morning a tutorial without fail. And a lot of times I'll add an additional video throughout the week as well. So I always love having you guys come along on my crochet journey and all the shenanigans I get up to. So I look forward to seeing you in the next session. So remember, have an amazing day, guys. Happy crocheting and take good care. See you next time.